Someone close to you is struggling, falling apart really, and you want to help. So you say the most natural thing in the world: stay positive, it'll get better. Just focus on the good things. You mean it, you believe it, and in that moment, you genuinely think you've helped. But what if that single sentence just made everything worse? Not in a small way, in a way that science can now prove and explain. Positive thinking is not just advice. In the modern world, particularly in the United States, it is a cultural religion. It is woven into graduation speeches, into corporate wellness retreats, into gym posters, Instagram captions, and therapy waiting rooms. The belief is elegant in its simplicity. Your thoughts shape your reality. Think good thoughts, attract good outcomes. Think dark thoughts, attract dark ones. When we feel anxious, we try to reframe it. When we feel sad, we push it away. When a friend is suffering, we reflexively hand them optimism, because we genuinely don't know what else to give. This isn't stupidity, it's conditioning, and it comes from a very specific place, with a very specific history that almost nobody talks about. Because once you understand where positive thinking actually came from, and what peer-reviewed research actually shows, the entire story changes. In 1952, a pastor named Norman Vincent Peale published a book called The Power of Positive Thinking. It sold 5 million copies in its first run. It stayed on the New York Times bestseller list for 186 consecutive weeks. The premise was simple. Your mind is a magnet. Positive thoughts attract positive outcomes. Negative thoughts attract negative ones. And God, Peale argued, had specifically designed human consciousness to work this way. The problem? Peale was a pastor, not a psychologist, not a neuroscientist, not a researcher with a peer-reviewed methodology or a controlled data set. He was a preacher with a compelling story, and the world mistook the story for science. Tony Robbins, The Secret, Manifesting Culture, Good Vibes Only. A $15 billion industry built on a 1952 pastor's hunch that was never required to prove anything, because it felt so good to believe. And feeling good is not the same thing as being true. Here is what the positive thinking industry explicitly promises. Repeat affirmations daily, and your brain physically rewires itself. Visualize success, and your nervous system aligns to create it. Reject negative thoughts, and your mental health improves. These are extraordinary claims, and they all share one critical thing in common. When researchers actually tested them, the results were uncomfortable. A 2009 study published in the journal Psychological Science asked participants with diagnosed low self-esteem to repeat the affirmation, "I am a lovable person," over and over, every day. The result? Their mood got measurably worse. Not better, worse. Because for someone who already doubted their own worth, being forced to contradict their internal experience didn't create confidence. It created conflict, a war between what they were saying and what they actually felt. And the brain doesn't just accept what you tell it. It audits, it checks. And when what you say doesn't match what you feel, your brain flags it. Now here's where it becomes specifically relevant to anxiety, because anxiety is not just sadness. It's not overthinking on a Sunday night or a rough week at work. Anxiety is a nervous system state. It is a physiological alarm, evolved over millions of years, designed to detect and respond to threats. And unlike a mood, which can sometimes be shifted by perspective, a nervous system on high alert does not respond to logic. It does not respond to reframing, and it absolutely does not respond to affirmations. When you tell an anxious person to just think positive, here's what you are actually asking their brain to do. You are asking a fire alarm to stop beeping by putting a piece of tape over the speaker. The fire is still there. The alarm is still triggered. You've just made it impossible to hear the warning. In 2010, researchers at Harvard Medical School studied the relationship between emotional suppression and anxiety disorders. The findings were not surprising to anyone who has actually lived with anxiety. The more aggressively people attempted to suppress anxious thoughts, the more frequently those thoughts returned, with greater emotional intensity than before. Here's why. The brain interprets active suppression as a threat signal. When you say, "Don't think about this," your brain asks, "Why are we avoiding this thought? What's dangerous about it?" And a thought your brain has flagged as dangerous, it monitors constantly. It watches for it, waits for it, makes sure it doesn't slip by undetected. In other words, positive thinking doesn't quiet anxiety. It gives anxiety a biological reason to get louder. Meet Emma. She's 28, works in marketing. By outward appearances, she holds it together beautifully. But Emma has lived with anxiety since she was 14 years old, and she has tried everything. The gratitude journals, the meditation apps, the morning routine, the vision board above her desk. She even hired a life coach, Coach Ryan, who told her with complete confidence and a very wide smile, "Emma, you just need to redirect those thoughts. Choose positivity. Your mindset is the only barrier between you and the life you want." And Emma tried. She genuinely tried. 6 in the morning. 3 things she was grateful for. Mirror. Deep breath. Out loud. I am calm. I am safe. I am enough. And for approximately 11 minutes, it worked. Then the anxiety came back, louder than before. And now, layered on top of the original anxiety, was a brand new thought. Why can't I even do this right? The positive thinking hadn't healed Emma's anxiety. It had given her anxiety something new to be anxious about. What Emma was experiencing has a formal name. Daniel Wegner, a psychologist at Harvard, called it ironic process theory. In 1987, he ran one of psychology's most replicated experiments. Participants were given a single instruction. Whatever you do, do not think about a white bear. What happened? Within seconds, their minds were consumed by white bears. The harder they tried to suppress the thought, the more frequently it surfaced, with more intensity, more urgency, more weight. Now apply this exact mechanism to anxiety. It's 3 a.m. Your heart is racing. You feel it in your chest, in your jaw, in your hands, and you tell yourself, stop, think positive, you're fine. Your brain immediately enters its surveillance loop. Are we thinking positively yet? Are we still thinking negatively? Wait, in order to check for negative thoughts, I have to think about negative thoughts. It cannot complete the task without triggering the very thing it's trying to prevent. This is not a character flaw. This is not weakness or failure. This is a cognitive trap built directly into the architecture of how the human brain works. And positive thinking is the mechanism that springs it. And this trap is everywhere. On Instagram, it's good vibes only. Unfollow anyone who brings you down. In workplaces, stay solution-focused. Corporate language for, do not name problems out loud. In friendships, you just need to let that go, which often means your pain is making me uncomfortable, and I need it to stop. In family systems, we don't dwell on negative things in this house. What psychologists call toxic positivity isn't simply excessive cheerfulness. It is a specific pattern of behavior where negative emotional experiences are treated as moral failures, not just uncomfortable, wrong, shameful, signs of weakness. And when an anxious person, a depressed person, a grieving person internalizes that message, they don't just fight their anxiety, they fight themselves for having it. They become ashamed of a nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do. And shame, in the clinical psychology literature, is one of the most powerful drivers of symptom escalation. You don't just feel anxious, you feel broken for feeling anxious. And that is a very different and far heavier thing to carry. In 2012, researchers published a landmark study in psychological science, following over 1,300 adults for 6 months. They measured one specific variable, emotional acceptance. Not positivity, not optimism, not the ability to find silver linings, just the degree to which people could allow negative emotions to exist without immediately trying to suppress, fix, judge, or replace them. The result? People with the highest emotional acceptance showed significantly fewer depressive symptoms 6 months later. Not because they became more positive, because they stopped declaring war on their own internal experience. The therapeutic framework that best puts this into practice is called ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, developed by psychologist Stephen Hayes at the University of Nevada. The core principle is deceptively simple. You don't have to like your thoughts. You don't have to believe them. You don't have to make them disappear. You just have to stop treating them as emergencies. Dr. Chen, a clinical researcher studying anxiety treatment outcomes, describes it this way. When we stop fighting our emotional experience, something unexpected happens. The thoughts don't necessarily get quieter right away, but they lose their authority. They become just thoughts, not commands, not prophecies, not proof of something broken inside you. And that shift? That is where real change becomes possible.
Here is what the positivity industry will never tell you. Dark thoughts are not proof that something is wrong with you. They are proof that you are alive.
Every human nervous system produces fear, doubt, sadness, and grief. That is not a malfunction. That is a feature. The question is not how to eliminate those thoughts. The question is, what do you do when they arrive? If any of this felt true, you probably already knew it, somewhere in your body, before you had words for it. That's not weakness. That's clarity. And clarity is where it starts. Subscribe, new video every week. This is The Honest Mind. Real psychology, no sugarcoating. We'll be here.